welcome to the next period of episode 6 of the Red Line podcast. Today we are chatting with our NBA insider, Scott Farquharson. Scotty, welcome on the line.
Hey, good to be here.
Dude, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how much you like basketball and when you started watching or playing and just your history there.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up playing basketball, played throughout junior high, and then played also into high school. But really, have loved watching on basketball growing up. Kobe Bryant was my idol. So obviously, with his passing this past year, that was a really sad moment for me as a basketball fan. But yeah, love the game. Love watching March Madness, college basketball as well. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us on the line today. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the NBA has been doing during COVID and how things have changed, maybe since they've resumed, and what they're doing differently?
Totally. So as you might remember back in March, the NBA was actually the first league to pull the plug due to one of their players testing positive from the Utah Jazz. Rudy Gobert tested positive, and after that, there was a number of players from his team that also tested positive, and so they shut things down pretty quick. But starting up here again, there'll be 22 teams back playing, so not the full league playing, but just 22 teams, and they'll be playing at the Walt Disney ESPN Wild World of Sports Complex in Orlando, Florida. So they've created a bubble for players and coaches and staff to live in for the rest of the season. So they're not supposed to leave and not have guests come in at all for the rest of the season. So there'll be 16 regular teams playing in the playoffs as soon as the season is over. So like normal, I guess. But so 16 teams currently in those playoff spots, as well as six players that are within the 6 games back from a playoff spot. So there's 8 games left in the rest of this regular season. So each team will have a chance to make the playoff. Potentially, if there's a team that's really close in 9th seed, they'll do a play-in. So that'll be a number of games between the 8th seed and the 9th seed to try and figure out who will be taking that 8th seed. So yeah, if they're within 4 games, the 9th seed is within 4 games of the 8th seed, they'll play 2 games against each other, where the 9th seed will have to win both of those games to take over the 8th spot.
Okay.
So lastly, some good news, and it was just announced yesterday that there's been 0 positive COVID tests for this 3rd consecutive week of testing. So that's good.
That's all within that bubble they made.
Yeah, that's all the players, coaches, and staff. No one has it, which is nice.
So it seems like the NBA is one of the only leagues to actually want to resume their regular season and not just diving right into the playoffs. You mentioned that there could be the potential of the 8th and 9th seed to have a playoff if that 9th seed is within 4 games of catching that 8th seed. Do you think, or maybe you have more insight into this, is that because they're not playing their full season out, or is there some other reason behind that?
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to be playing the full 82 games like a normal season. They cut the season short, obviously, and they won't have a chance to play all the games. So most teams will be averaging about like 70 to 75 games or something like that. So they're just giving the opportunity for the 9th seed to make it in the playoffs because they're taking away those other games.
That makes sense. That's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea so that those teams aren't frustrated by the fact that they can't have the opportunity to make the playoffs.
You mentioned that there's only the 22 teams playing now, which isn't the full roster. Is that because the teams that aren't playing they picked were just they had no chance of making it into the playoffs if they were just cut.
Exactly, yeah. So if teams weren't within a certain number of games of a playoff spot, they were just cut. Um, and they did that to try and reduce the number of people in the bubble and reduce the exposure. And yeah, so I think that also is smart so that there's less a chance of COVID outbreak and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's crazy to see the Golden State Warriors have such a drop off this year.
Yeah, with the injuries of Curry and Klay Thompson, they didn't really stand a chance, but maybe they'll get a draft pick out of it. So who knows?
Yeah.
So how did they rearrange the schedule then to figure out who would be playing each other for these last 8 games?
So they picked games from the remainder of the schedule that was happening, and they rearranged it so that obviously the teams that were there were able to play each other, and yeah, so they just rearranged it based off of which teams were there and which um, games were left in the schedule.
Wow. Okay. So it seems that there's been a bit of a battle for eighth place since the restart. Who are some of the teams to watch out for since the season has restarted in the NBA?
Yeah, so in the East, it's I'd say the standings are pretty much set. Washington is currently the ninth place team in the East, but they're like 8 games behind Orlando, which is currently in the eighth seed, so they don't have a chance really of making the playoffs. But in the West, there's 6 teams all battling for the eighth spot. So it'll be exciting to see who ends up taking that one. They're all currently within like 3 games of each other. So yeah, currently Memphis has the eighth seed, but there's a lot that potentially could take over that spot. It's interesting. The Phoenix Suns have since the start of the NBA, they've won 3 straight games. So kind of they're really pushing hard to see if they can get in that playoff spot.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Very good. Yeah. So it seems the other standings in the West have pretty much been decided then from 1 through 7, or can those places still shift around pretty good?
Yeah, there's potential for some shift. The first place in the West, Lakers have it for sure. Yeah, that locked in. But second place all the way to eighth place, there's potential for some moving around in the next 4 or 5 games that they have remaining. Yeah, I imagine that there'll be some shifting. In the East, it's the same. So the first place, Milwaukee, has a lock on that, but all the rest of the teams have potential to move around a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah. Yeah. Toronto's won 3 straight games coming into the restart here, and this was supposed to be a season for them of a bit of a drop off since Kawhi Leonard left. Can you give us a little insight into why you think Toronto's been having such a good season?
Yeah, so a lot of people have counted them out since Kawhi's left, but for me, I think it comes down to their defense. They have really solid defense, and they've been able to shut down. They were able to shut down the Lakers, and they beat them by 15 points when they played since the restart. So that was a shock to most people. But yeah, I think it's their defense. They're able to. They got 2 good defenders in Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka inside to lock down the key and make sure that they are just protecting the rim and stuff like that. So I think that mainly it's their defense and how they just make teams uncomfortable with shooting and keep them on edge and stuff like that. So
Awesome. Okay, so moving on to more individual players here. We talked about teams to watch out for, but who are some players that we need to be watching out for as the season is restarted and we're moving in ever so closer to the playoffs?
yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to watch LeBron play. He, well, as everyone knows, playoff LeBron is a different player altogether. So it'll be crazy to see him despite the fact that he's getting older. See if he can make another run for championship. So, and I think they have a pretty good chance. So it'll be fun to watch him and Anthony Davis play together.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see Zion, see if Zion can make a push for the Rookie of the Year. I think one of the reasons that they actually extended the the number of teams that could play was so that people could watch Zion play again. So there's a lot of excitement around him and what he's doing on the Pelicans there. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if he can get the Rookie of the Year or not. But I think it'll probably be given to Ja Morant on the Memphis Grizzlies. He just had a more consistently good season, and Zion was injured for a lot of it, so we'll see what happens. But two other players that I'll like to watch the remainder of the season are just Luka Doncic, as he's had an incredible season. See if he can make a push for the MVP or potentially get the Most Improved Player of the Year award. And then lastly, just watch Giannis, see if he can repeat getting MVP like he did last year. So, yeah, I think that'll be
The Greek.
interesting.
Love the Greek freak. So on that topic of players, are there any players, key players, maybe we'll stick with that opted out to the restart due to COVID?
Yeah, so there have been a number of players that have opted out. So some of the more key players, I'd say Bradley Beal on the Washington Wizards. He won't be making it. He's not coming to the playoffs or to the rest of the season. But like as I mentioned before, Washington doesn't have a super good chance of making the playoffs. I don't think they even can. So that probably won't affect them too much. Another player that might have a big impact, though, is Victor Oladipo. He suffered a quad injury earlier this season and has just taken more time off to recover from this injury. But this could have a big impact on the possibility of the Pacers having a playoff run this year. So we'll have to see what happens there. Two other players, Avery Bradley on the Lakers and Trevor Ariza. Both of these players would have a big impact on their teams and would affect them in the playoffs, particularly Portland. They're battling for the 8th seed, so they'll really feel the loss of Trevor Ariza for the last couple games here.
Awesome. Yeah, and it seems to be a lot of sports have had some athletes opt out, and some have been bigger stars than others. And it's interesting to hear the NBA, and also it's interesting to hear how they've been so successful in keeping that bubble tight and not having any COVID cases for 3 consecutive weeks. So that's encouraging to hear, just from a sports standpoint, to know that the league is still pushing on, where the MLB, for example, has had multiple outbreaks in the league already, which is too bad. Back on the playoff train here, you mentioned that there's a number of teams that are battling for 8th place. And in the West, it's Memphis, Portland, San Antonio, the Pelicans, and New Orleans. The Phoenix Suns are making a push with their 3 consecutive wins, and as well the Sacramento Queens, as Shaq infamously put it. Who is your pick for that last seed in the West?
Yeah, I would say either San Antonio or the Phoenix Suns. Both of them have had good restarts, so they've been consistently playing well since the restart. Memphis who's currently in the 8th place. They've lost all 4 games so far, so I don't know that they will be able to pull out the 8th seed. So yeah, I'd probably say San Antonio. They're just well coached. I mean, well-rounded team. It'll be interesting if they can pull it out. But either them or the Phoenix Suns, I'd say.
Awesome. Okay, now we're putting you on the spot here with some more picks, but who is your pick for the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference to meet in the NBA Finals?
Well, that's a tough one. Yeah, out of the East, I'd probably say either the Bucks or the Raptors. If I had to pick one, I'd say probably the Bucks. As much as I love the Raptors and want them to win, I just don't know that they can stand up to the Bucks in the playoffs. But we'll have to see. And then out of the West, I gotta go with yeah, probably either the Lakers or the Clippers. So both the teams in LA, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick one though, oh, that's a tough one. Probably the Lakers. They just I don't know, have LeBron carrying them, and with the help from Anthony Davis, I think they should be able to to win that over the Clippers. But if the Clippers, they have some key pieces right now that they're missing, and so if those pieces come back and come back healthy, like they could potentially come out of the West. And then yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see though who wins it.
I think I'm with you. I think the Bucks have kind of gone up another gear this year from where they were last year. And I know the Raptors took out the Bucks last year in the playoffs, but I think the Bucks, yeah, have kind of gone another gear. I think they'll be stronger than the Raptors in the playoffs. So I think they'll be the people out of the East, and I think the Lakers will be out of the West. But yeah, I agree. I think LeBron's playoff experience, um, and just sheer power between him and Anthony Davis. I think they'll be the winners this year, and I'll be interested to see if that's the case. It's been a while for the Lakers, so
Yeah, yeah, they probably have the best chance of being the champions this year, but I think it'll be them or the Clippers. I think it'll be someone out of the West that wins it.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been fun looking at the playoffs here and the playoff run. We'll see how it turns out in the end and look back and see if our predictions were right here. It's good chatting with you, Scotty. Thanks for coming in and being our insider for the NBA. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Bet. Thanks, Scotty.